Hey friends, it's Tracy. For today's video, I want to talk about DIYs for the Disney parks, and specifically DIYs involving ears. So I wanted to share some of my creations, how I made them, as well as what I found works and what doesn't work. I love doing arts and crafts, and incorporating them into Disney outfits and Disney bounds has become one of my favorite things to do. So let's get into it. The first ear DIY I want to talk about is super easy, the ribbon tying trend. You might be thinking like, girl, really? But in my book, it is a customization, so I wanted to talk about it real quick. Basically, it's just tying little bows on the plain black Mickey ears, which is this in its most basic form. And I definitely think you can be more adventurous with this trend to something like this, which are some Nightmare Before Christmas ears and a wire ribbon that has like little tufts on it. In their normal state, I feel like these ears are very Halloween-y, but adding a ribbon like this, you can turn them into Christmas ears. There are so many fun different types of ribbons out there, and it's just a fun way to add a little extra something to your ears to match different looks and different seasons. Next up are Kingdom Hearts ears, which is quite a jump from the last one. This was the first painting project I did on ears, so I kind of went overboard on these. These started as the plain black Mickey ears from the parks, but we've got Donald, Goofy, Sora, and then a Keyblade. The Keyblade was just a little pouch pretty much that I glued on, but for the other three sides, the process was a little bit complicated, and I'll insert a clip here of what that looked like. Basically, I started with tracing the ears on some cardstock and used that to make some stencils for all my fabric pieces, which there were many of. Some of them I used faux leather, some I used fabric, and some I used some zipper pieces. Fashion in Kingdom Hearts has a lot of zippers, I feel like. For the Sora, Donald, and Goofy sides, I used acrylic paint to paint directly on the ears. No primer or gesso or anything like that for this one. It did take a couple coats of paint, like 2 or 3 for each side, I'd say. And once that paint was all dry, I assembled all of my pieces. The glue that I used was contact cement, which is extremely heavy duty, but it has held up very well. The edges of the fabric here have gotten a little bit frayed and probably need some touch up now. But overall, I'm super happy with how these have held up. There are 2 critiques that I have for myself for these ears. One is how heavy they got from everything that I attached to them. Even though it is just fabric and zipper pieces, it did add up and added quite a bit of weight to them. The second thing is EVA foam. I did have a little Sora crown that I made from foam in the middle here that I had some unfortunate incidents with. And I do have a lot more to say about EVA foam on another pair of ears. It did take quite a beating. It got bent, the paint chipped off, and it was just a mess to the point where it fell off completely. For the crown, I used hot glue to attach it, which there is a little bit of remnant of, but I'm kind of glad that I used hot glue instead of contact cement, because contact cement I think would have been too strong and the super beat up crown would still be stuck there. So that's a few things I learned from this pair. The hot glue thing I'm not super worried about because when you wear them, it's not that evident. But yeah, I just love Kingdom Hearts so much, and it kind of makes me sad that we don't get that much merch at the parks for it. Next up are some turning red ears with Panda Mei on each side. I missed out on getting the Panda Mei ears that came out in the parks, so this was my alternative to that. But these also started as the plain black Mickey ears from the parks. As you can see, these had quite a bit more paint involved, which was kind of another learning experience, to be totally honest. From far away, they look okay, but I think the closer you inspect them, the more flaws and imperfections are evident. I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but there are quite a few brush strokes that you can see in this one. The ears I also have a lot to say about, but that is EVA foam. So these, I changed my strategy a little bit. I started with white gesso for the base in hope of not having to do so many layers of paint, but I don't think that made a huge difference. But to break down the process a little bit more, I drew on the face design freehand with some gel pen before I went in with paint, because gel pen comes off pretty easily with a wet paper towel if any mistakes happen. So it's kind of like doing the sketch before doing your painting. That part was smooth, no complaints there. The orange paint was kind of what threw this one off, I think, because that particular color needed a lot of coats to cover up the gesso. The ears have another story. These are EVA foam. Cut out one piece for the front and one piece for the back, and then attach those together with contact cement. But I don't think I'd recommend using EVA foam on ears unless you treat your ears super delicately and super fragile. I like rip them off and throw them into my bag when I go on rides and stuff like that, which was kind of what happened here. Some of the paint has chipped off and the ears themselves have gotten bent and they're just kind of a mess, to be honest. The contact cement is super sturdy, so it's kind of hard to take them off. I do think at some point I'm going to repair these, replace them with like a fabric ear that has stuffing in it, so it doesn't have this bending and chipping issue. Another good thing about these ears is that the paint on the ears themselves has not chipped, even though it's like super thick. I did use some Mod Podge to seal the acrylic paint after it was dry. I will say that these are probably my least favorite DIY ears. Very hard to look past the mistakes that these ones have in my eyes. The last one I have today is Darth Maul ears. And from everything that I've learned from the previous ones, I definitely applied some of those lessons here. The main one being much thinner coats of paint. In comparison, the Panda Mei ones, I used a solid coat of gesso over the entire ear. These ones, I did not do that. The red paint, I just went in and painted directly on the ear. And then the black parts, I used black gesso. But before I did that, the first step was my sketch, which I did here in gel pen again. So I used that as my sketch to paint in my design. There's so many small details on this design that there were some parts where I went over my sketch, which I cleaned up with the black gesso. Gesso, I find, runs more smooth than acrylic paint sometimes, so it was easier to get nice clean lines with that. Then once that was all dry, I went in with my Mod Podge again and sealed that. The finishing touch that I wanted to do was these little spikes. There is what those look like. I made these out of air dry clay. The one I used is Model Magic, which is pretty much a kid's clay, but it's super, super lightweight and doesn't add much weight to these ears, which was the lesson from the Kingdom Hearts ears. I didn't want to leave them plain white, so I painted them with acrylic paint, kind of an off-white bone color, and just a tiny bit of brown to add some weathering and dimension. Hot glue, I feel, wasn't strong enough after what happened with the crown on the Kingdom Hearts ears. The contact cement, on the other hand, was too strong, so I was kind of too scared to use it. So I tried super glue with this one. I just finished these a few days ago, but it's nice and sturdy so far and no issues when I try to move them around, which is a good sign. So yeah, so I am very excited about this. I love the little detail of the spikes. I am so excited with how that turned out. And I have been wanting to do a Darth Maul Disney bound for a while, so these are going to be perfect to wear with that. A couple more little tips before we wrap things up here. So the painted ears that I shared are all the plain black Mickey ears from the parks, which are getting to be pretty pricey. So the tip I have for these, if you are thinking of customizing them, is keep an eye out for sales. Rarely they'll have some sort of sale on ears in the parks or on disneystore.com. When that does happen, I try to get 1 or 2 pairs just to have on hand. Knowing that I like to craft and DIY on them. Sometimes ears that go on clearance on disneystore.com. One of them that I picked up was these Disney 100 ears. I saw potential in these for customizing because they are also faux leather. They were on clearance for like $11 or something like that. The bow I definitely want to take off, and I think that should be pretty easy to do because it's just sewn on. But the point I wanted to share with these is to keep an eye out for clearance ears. If you're looking to do a painting project where you'd cover up the design anyway, something like this could have potential. I've had these sitting around for a while, but I might have an idea for these, a Sabine Wren design possibly. So I will report back on that. So that's all I have to share for today. Let me know if you'd be interested to see the full DIY process. Up to now, I've mostly been sharing those on TikTok. It can be a lot to film when you're crafting and trying to talk and film at the same time. So it is kind of a commitment, but let me know if you'd be interested to see that here. There is a really cool trend that popped up on TikTok of earrings on the plain black Mickey ears. I am super tempted to try that, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I hope that these tips and my experience might have been helpful for you. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching and for being here, and I hope to see you in the next one.